Hello, everybody. What's up? Welcome to this day's session. So, my name is Jo Sebastian. I am a registered nutritionist and dietitian. I'm also somebody who has struggled with their relationship with food for quite a while. And this is something that I want to talk about today in our discussion of you are what you eat. So, let's dive into it. So, when you hear the phrase you are what you eat, what's the first thing that you think of? It's usually based on your food choices, right? What you're eating in the moment. For example, if you eat junk food, then you are junk, right? We usually have that association. Another thing I often hear is if you eat bad food, then you are bad. We have this moral value to food that we associate with ourselves as well. And that's what we usually think when we say you are what you eat. But for me, when we say you are what you eat, I don't think it's about the food you're eating. I think it's about the words that we are eating, the intentions that we have around food. Because most of the time, the reason why we eat is a bigger thing that affects us than we think it does. Your intentions around food is what you embody. For example, like we mentioned, if you think that the food is bad, you will also think that you are bad. And if your intention is to punish yourself through food, then you start to feel punished as well. The words, the care, the intention. Here's the thing, and this is something I talk to my clients about a lot, and this is something that we don't really give any attention to, but your relationship with food is often a reflection of your relationship with yourself. And most of the time I hear these like, oh, I don't have a relationship with food. That's an inanimate object. How could I possibly have a relationship with food? Your relationship with food is a reflection of your relationship with yourself. And that is because it begs the question, what do we deserve? Do I deserve to eat this ice cream? I haven't been good. What do we deserve? Do we deserve kindness? Do we deserve care? Do we deserve to live our life? This is often the question that we tend to ask ourselves. And that reflects in your relationship with food. Because if you don't feel like you are worthy, then you won't treat yourself as if you are. And we resort to those skinny teas, those very low calorie diets, the appetite suppressants, and the very restrictive diets because we feel like that's what we deserve. We deserve to be punished because that is what we need to do to achieve health and to feel accepted and so on. And because of all of these things, we don't feel like we are worthy of care and we treat ourselves as such. And a lot of this is a result of diet culture. Dictionary definition is that diet culture is a belief system that values weight, shape, and size over well-being. Essentially, this is the thought of it doesn't matter if you are starving or suffering as long as you're skinny. And you can see health products marketed for being skinny or mainly for weight loss. And then you see those products, they tend to have been taken out a lot of nutrients from them because the assumption is that calories are bad or all of these nutrients are bad when food is there to nourish us. But because of diet culture, everything is just geared towards weight loss. You have exercise promoted for weight loss or punishment for eating. So instead of working out to celebrate your body or to be stronger, you're working out solely so that you can have a smaller body or so that you can earn calories for dinner later, and it becomes a punishment. And of course, praising diet efforts and weight loss while shaming weight gain without context. In my experience, when I was doing the most disordered eating patterns I had ever had, I was barely eating and so on. I was praised. Oh, I wish I could do that too. I should be in a diet. In local setting in Filipino, there's this phrase, it's sana all, which is basically I wish everyone could do that in a way. And then when I gained weight, when I was working on healing from that terrible relationship with food, I was shamed. Oh, you let yourself go. Oh, you should try harder, maybe have more discipline. And nobody even knew what I was going through. So these comments and this view of health being solely tied to our body and our weight does create this feeling of not being enough and wanting to punish ourselves. Weight over health is constantly emphasized. And because of this, disordered eating habits become normalized. Now it's normal if you skip meals. It's actually better if you don't have breakfast. And yeah, you should probably skip dessert all the time. This is the spectrum of eating behavior. So you have one side, which is the eating disorders, and this have to meet the diagnostic criteria in your DSM-5, but that's anorexia, bulimia, binge eating, and other specified feeding disorders. Then you have the other side of the spectrum, which is intuitive eating. So intuitive eating is when your food choices are influenced by hunger and preference. So you eat when you're hungry and you also eat because it's enjoyable. You use your own hunger and fullness cues to guide you and not other people telling you should eat at these times and only these times and never in the times where you're actually hungry. There's not much guilt or shame around food. You can eat with spontaneity and flexibility. Like if I come to you and I say, "Let's go have some pizza," I'll treat you. It's okay, instead of, "Oh my gosh, how am I gonna eat?" Right? So sometimes we have that type of stress around food. You can eat socially without stress. There's no fears or rules around food, but you still eat a variety of nutrient dense and less nutrient dense foods or fun foods. And you are active not just for punishment, but for actual health and enjoyment. So, in the middle of the spectrum, we have disordered eating. And this is usually when your food choices are strongly influenced by your weight and body type. There's often a lot of guilt and anxiety around food or making food choices. We tend to ignore our own hunger and fullness cues, or we can't trust ourselves. There's a frequent comparison of your intake with others, like, "Oh, they're eating so much, I'm eating so much," or "They're eating so little, I have to eat less." Preoccupation with calories rather than the overall nutrients that we get, very rigid rules around food, the good and bad mindset around food, that there is a superior food and then there are foods that we shouldn't be eating. We tend to eat often out of emotional hunger, and we link our food intake to exercise compensation. And a lot of these times, these habits are normalized. Like, yes, you should probably burn off your burger. Yes, you should drink a tea after you have a big meal. So a lot of these habits are things we normalize in our culture, and we don't even see them as problems, when a lot of these can actually develop into eating disorders later on. And that's why it's so important to know about your relationship with food, because we want to have this knowledge of, is it really my fault? Or is there something more? Because I work with a lot of individuals who always feel like it's their fault and they shame themselves and they guilt themselves, but there's so much more to it. It starts with a thought: I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, I gotta do better. And it becomes an action. And this action is usually the restrict and binge cycle. So it starts with a diet. Oh, I want to be healthier. I want to lose weight. I'm going to go on a diet. And if you search online, what are the first diets that come up? Very restrictive diets that have these lists of no foods, have these very low calorie intakes, and all of these diets that you can just find online. But the moment you put yourself on a diet, is the moment you start thinking about these foods more, you start to crave them, you start to want them more. And this happens a lot because also we notice in a lot of Western culture diets, they tend to demonize Asian food choices. And so we can kind of see that big difference in the diets you see online, and you feel restricted because a lot of your cultural foods are quote unquote not allowed. So you start to want them more because you're missing out on something. And then you're like, "Oh, you know what? I'll just have a bite, just one, that's it." But after that one bite, you feel all of this guilt and shame, and it turns into a binge, eating as much as you can in a short period of time. And by the way, there's a difference between binge eating and overeating, where overeating does tend to happen regularly. You eat past a comfortable level. But when you feel binge eating, this is really that robotic, out of control feeling, this bottomless pit in your stomach that just can't be filled. And even if you're full, you're also hungry at the same time. And what happens after that is the guilt and shame. Okay, it comes into a time to cope, and this is often the compensation behaviors that we might have, which could be over exercising, laxatives, or skipping meals. And the thought is, okay, after this, I will do another diet, and this is going to be the one. But it's a cycle. And once you step back into restriction, the cycle continues. The feeling of being out of control around food is a result of restriction, not a lack of willpower. A lot of it is that restricting of ourselves from being able to fully live our lives. And all we want to do is live and have fun. But we can't because we're not allowing ourselves to do that. And so we have this push and pull. So how do we move forward? Okay, so there's a cycle. Now that you're aware of the cycle, the next question will be, how do I get out of it? How do I move forward? So let me introduce you to your ABCs. And I will be honest, I kind of just tried to push the ABC thing for memory purposes, but that is A, assess your intentions, B, bestow yourself permission, and C, curiosity over judgment. These are 3 very important things that I teach to my clients and I try to work on myself that has really helped me view my relationship with food in a different light. So let's start with assess your intentions. Every time you're about to do a diet, it's always important to ask yourself why. Every time you're about to do a food rule or create this restrictive rules around food, it's always important to ask yourself why. Why are you doing this? Who is it for? Is it helpful or is it hurtful? And what do I mean by that? For example, rice. Again, like I mentioned, it's a very cultural food and often demonized by diet culture in general, right? So sometimes we tend to not want to eat it or we're afraid to eat it. And so I used to do these diets where I would stop eating rice and then I would crave it and want it more because Filipino food is just so well paired with rice. And every time I wouldn't eat rice with my viands, or what we call ulam, I would always feel hungry, like I was not satisfied. So I would end up eating more later. So the reason I was restricting rice wasn't because I didn't like it or wasn't because I didn't enjoy it. It was just because I was told that I wasn't allowed to eat it. And it was hard for me to do it because that was out of shame and guilt. On the other hand, there are times where dairy doesn't sit well with my stomach. And in the mindset of I can't have dairy or I don't want to eat too much dairy because it makes my stomach unsettled, I'm not doing it because it's quote unquote bad, but because I understand what my body feels. And there's a difference. Shame and guilt or kindness and compassion. Assess your intentions. Because if you're just doing it as a punishment, it's not going to stick. But if you're doing it because you are listening to your body, you're going to be able to understand it more. Number 2, bestow yourself permission. What does this mean? Okay, what does that mean? Here's the thing. One of the most important mindsets to develop in your relationship with food is that there is no such thing as good or bad food. Yes, there are foods that have more nutrients than others. That's a given. Like we know that. We're not saying they all have the same nutrient value, but they don't have moral value. Because when you add this moral value, you're going to internalize it. For example, chips. We've deemed that as bad. You eat chips, and every time you take a bite, you feel so guilty. And now you're having secondary guilt that you're eating it and feeling guilty about it. So you end up eating more and you're stressed that you're eating so much. So you try to find other foods that are available because you've already been bad today. Why not just be bad the rest of the day and be good tomorrow? Every time I tell myself I can't have donuts, and by the way, I love donuts. Every time I tell myself I can't have a donut, all of my ads, or I see donuts in all of the ads when I'm swiping. So I'm thinking about it more. But now that I have allowed myself to eat donuts whenever I want to, and this mindset of permission is that it will always be there. The food will always be available to you. You can have it whenever you want to. You get to really ask yourself, do I want this food truly because I will enjoy it? Or do I want it just because I'm not allowed to have it tomorrow? You have to give yourself unconditional permission to eat, to change, to make mistakes, to learn about yourself, to take your time, and to live your life. And that starts by taking away the good and bad mentality. And I know you're probably thinking, yeah, but if I let myself eat whatever I want, I'm only going to eat the quote unquote bad foods. I'm going to be honest, I thought that too. Okay, I really thought that. And at the beginning, that's what it felt like. But imagine yourself eating only the foods that are quote unquote bad for the rest of your life, or the foods that you fear or afraid of or feel guilty for eating. If I imagine myself eating donuts every single day for the rest of my life, I start to not want donuts because I'm thinking of how I won't enjoy it anymore because it's going to always be there. In the same way that we don't really look for vegetables because we know it's always going to be there. And when we switch that mindset to other foods, we can truly enjoy it and make decisions not because we're running out of time to eat it, but because we actually want to. And number 3, we have our letter C, which is curiosity over judgment. I think as humans, we have a really big tendency to judge ourselves and to just automatically think of all of the worst things. And one of the things I really want to work on, especially with my clients, is to hone into curiosity rather than judgment. Because judgment holds you back, right? It stops you, it puts you in a box. Like, that's it. You didn't do good and that's it. But curiosity, it offers growth. It offers learnings, lessons, and allows you to really see, what do I have to work on, or how can I improve on this? And how do I see myself in the future? Or how can this help me more? Right? And let me show you a little bit of an example. For example, you just ate a whole bag of chips. Judgment would be this: oh, you're so out of control. You have to make up for this tomorrow. Why don't you have any control? What's wrong with you? And when you say that, it holds you back. That's it. Oh no, I'm not good enough. I don't know how to nourish myself, and it traps you in this box. But when we shift over to curiosity, you ask yourself after you've eaten this bag of chips, do I feel uncomfortable, and why do I feel uncomfortable? Am I still restricting myself? Are there emotions that I'm feeling? What can I do tomorrow to make myself feel better? Or have I eaten enough? When you ask yourself these questions and when you're more curious as to why this happened, this allows you to kind of dive into solutions. It allows you to understand how to move forward tomorrow. Oh, I ate this whole bag of chips because I skipped breakfast. Then that reminds you tomorrow not to skip those meals. You don't have to love yourself fully. Okay, I'm not saying that you have to be all, oh, I love my body so much, I'm the best, or all of those things. But you do have to be kind to yourself and treat yourself with respect, because nourishment is very important. And for the ASEAN community, eating well and being healthy is something that connects us all together. So I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation, and I hope that it helped you dip your toes a little bit into healing your relationship with food, because there's a lot more to unpack, but this is something that we can start with to help us on that path, and I hope that it was helpful to you. If it was, I hope you work on your relationship with food, because I'm excited to work on it with you, if ever. Thank you all so much for listening, and like I always say, you always deserve to eat.